thanks everyone for joining us today. This is the Hong Kong Fellowship, PhD Fellowship information session and student showcase. So what we'll be doing in the session is we have with us Mr. John Ghana, who's going to be giving a presentation, and that will be followed up with a question and answer session. And after that, I will be giving a short presentation. Whoops. I will be giving a short presentation on the Hong Kong Fellowship and on the department. And then we will give you another chance to ask any questions either to John or to myself and Professor Kathleen Arends, who's also joining us today as the Departmental Research Committee Chair. So I'd like to firstly introduce Mr. John Ghana, who is a PhD candidate in the Department of English and Communication. He is also an awardee of the prestigious Hong Kong PhD Fellowship. His current research focuses on how individual sociopolitical actors construct identity and represent the self in the performance of politics, and explores the discourse practices and legitimation strategies used by these political actors. His interests are in critical discourse analysis, language and politics, and in media and political discourse. Mr. John Ghana is also a member of the Research Center for Professional Communication in English. So John, I'm going to give the floor over to you now. Could I please remind everyone that if you have any questions, if you could save those questions for after John's talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, John, we can hear you.
Okay, so good morning and thank you all for coming to my presentation. Yes, of course, my name is John Ghana and I'm a PhD candidate here at the Department of English and Communication, PolyU. Okay, so let's begin with a little exercise. I want you to take a moment to look at the picture on your screen carefully. All right, so imagine this is you. And more precisely, this is how 4 people who have met you have described who you are. That is your identity. The difference is in the way they perceive you, at least based on the facial expressions in the picture, may be due to how you talked, acted, or behaved toward them, leading to the conclusions they make about you. Now, these identities can point us to your states and also tell us more about your world. The point is, who we are has become more complex because we are all constantly performing identities in our daily interactions with people. First, we are individuals and live in hybrid societies. This means that our identities are not only individual, but also social. And language can serve as a powerful medium for performing identity. Now, the identities we perform using language resources are connected to our thoughts and intentions in communication. This implies that identity performs ideological function. So a change in identity is likely to result in a change in ideology, which may likely influence not only why people use language, but how they do so. Now, in their performance of politics, social actors like presidents who wield so much power use language to create identities and represent ideologies in ways that have far-reaching consequences. This phenomenon has implications for the functioning.
John, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Well, we can't see your slides. Can you just share your PowerPoint?
Oh, I thought they were already being shared.
No, you might have to share your PowerPoint.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. We understood everything. We just can't see your slides.
Yeah. Okay, just a moment then. Because I needed you to see the pictures.
That's okay. We did understand what you were saying, though. We were following.
Okay. Can you see them now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So sorry, this was a slide I wanted you to see that I talked about a while ago about different identities, right? Sorry. Yes. So I was just saying that we are all constantly performing identities in our daily interactions with people. And that first, we are individuals with diverse backgrounds and we live in hybrid societies. This means our identities are not only individual, but also social, and language can serve as a medium for performing identity. So the identities we perform using language resources are connected to our thoughts and intentions in communication. This implies that identity performs ideological function. So a change in identity is likely to result in change in ideology, which may influence not only why people use language, but how they do so. And in their performance of politics, social actors like presidents who wield so much power use language to create identities and represent their ideologies in ways that have far-reaching consequences. Now, this phenomenon has implication for the organization and functioning of society and requires a theoretical understanding of the complex relationship between identity, ideology, language, and society. My PhD study, titled Identity and Representation in the Political Discourse of Jerry John Rawlings, seeks to contribute knowledge in this area. I have divided my presentation into 4 parts: a brief introduction, giving a background information and situating the study. Next will be a synopsis of the study, followed by how a critical approach is helpful to the goals of the study. After this, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The whole presentation will last about 15 minutes. Now, the study is situated in the domain of discourse, a political discourse, which includes presidential discourses. Now, a study by Trajectories Black 2011 indicates that the analysis of political text is critical, and in critical and social research has long attracted scholarly attention. In line with this, Wilson's study in 2001 observes that politicians often seek out ways in which they can utilize language resources to achieve specific political purposes. And in doing so, they draw on other areas such as politics, sociology, economics, history, etc., which indicates how these areas interact with language. This confirms Batier's 2009 assertion that political discourse is multidimensional. This means a lot more can be learned about society, language, discourse, history, etc., through the analysis of political text, which is why my PhD and other similar studies at the intersection of language and politics are needed. Now, this brings me to the concern and focus of my research. My research examines the political discourses associated with political self-representation of Jerry John Rawlings, Ghana's longest-serving leader from 1981 to 2001. From 1981 to 1991, Rawlings led a military regime, and from 1992 to 2001, when he left office, he led a democratic government. Again, my study maximizes the merits of political discourse analysis, CDA, to understand the complex nature of identity politics and political self-representation of Rawlings within a specific period. Now, CDA is an umbrella concept that encompasses different theoretical and methodological approaches, and it aims to explain social phenomena, critique and expose social inequality, and call for social transformation. In addition, my study will determine whether the self-representations of Rawlings converged or diverged during the key political time periods that covered both military and democratic rule. In other words, are these identity constructions in the discourse of Rawlings coherent or not, and why? I'm also interested in this study in understanding how discursive illusions as put forth by Batier 2015 are formed in discourse. That is, how politicians utilize identical forms of discourse, discursive styles and linguistic choices to produce opposite accounts of reality. The The study will also shed light on the discursive practices of legitimation embedded in Rawlings's construction of self, which may reveal his ideological leanings and how this may have contributed to certain public perceptions of him. Here, my focus is on how cultural and historical factors can shape new uses of legitimation strategies. This way, my PhD aims to draw on and extend the boundaries of existing theories of legitimation. And I'm very happy to announce that my paper, co-authored with Dr. Bhatia and Dr. Nati, published online in the esteemed Journal of Language and Politics, titled A Critical Examination of Legitimation in the Revolutionary Discourse of Jerry John Rawlings, found 2 new categories of legitimation that were very consistent with our data. Now, the study is structured around 3 questions that will provide a basis for analyzing the data in a coherent manner and serve as a frame for presenting my findings. These 3 questions are as follows. 1, how did Rawlings represent himself during his military rule? 2, how did Rawlings represent himself during his democratic rule? And 3, which legitimation strategies were used to validate those various representations of Rawlings? I'm sure most of you are asking, who is Rollins? So here is a brief video about him. I won't play everything, but at least you can have some idea about who he is.
Just an ordinary, hungry, screaming Ghanaian who wants to realize his creative potential, who wants to contribute.
Songs in praise of me, please. Sing it in praise of Ghana and Africa, the black man.
A government has the obligation, the moral responsibility to be seen to be fighting against corruption all the time. By virtue of what happened, or the revolt of '79, this government has become more proactive in fighting against corruption.
All right, so at this point, one may ask, why Rawlings? Why is he the focus of this study? Well, Rawlings, because of his centrality in Ghana's historical development and African revolutions in general. In fact, he is considered as an archetypal African revolutionary politician whose politics has shaped Ghana and the sub-region. And even though Rawlings's revolutionary politics were constructed to achieve specific goals in Ghanaian politics 3 decades ago, an analysis of his discourse is relevant to contemporary politics, as revolutionary discourses, for example, are still prevalent today and are being reenacted by socio-political actors to, for example, justify violence and mobilize radical actions, as evidenced by the recent invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the coup d'etat in Burkina Faso, Gambia, Guinea, and even Mali. Now, from the video, you can hear Rawlings performing identity when he said, I quote, "I am just an ordinary, hungry, screaming Ghanaian." These are different layers of identities that Rawlings is constructing. And the question is, how does he do that and for what purposes? This is what my study seeks to unpack. And this requires a critical investigation, which is why the study adopts a critical orientation. So what do we mean by a critical orientation here? Critical orientation maintains that things are not as they appear and calls for being skeptical and not negative. That means it involves finding the intentions and motivations behind text and their social context. Now, as noted by Jeffries in 2005, a critical approach is necessary because much of the wrong in the world, such as dishonesty and manipulation, etc., was based in text that we could not access due to limited tools of analysis. So, as noted by Machin and Meir in 2012, critical orientation aims at exposing strategies that appear normal or neutral on the surface, but which may be ideological and seek to shape the representation of events and persons for particular objectives. A critical orientation or a critical approach is also informed by critical theory, which aims at social change. So what critical orientation is in my study in particular? My study specifically adopts discourse historic approach, or the DNA, to explore the representations of Rollins. Now, this approach underscores the historical recontextualization of a linguistic or a social phenomenon. DHA maintains that history is integral to discourse and analyzes the historical aspects within which discourse events occur. As noted by Van Leuven and Wodak in 1999, the approach thoroughly examines the changes that occur over time in the types of discourse that produce discursive events. And the DHA also maintains that something in the present and the future is connected to the past. That is, we understand the present better and make more informed predictions about the future only by reflecting on our historical past. Now, why is this approach suitable to my study? It is suitable because it provides framework for analyzing the strategies Rollins used to construct his identities in the form of guiding questions. Now, these questions have been adapted to suit my study, and they do not replace the 3 questions that guide the analysis of my study mentioned earlier. I want to quickly mention these guiding questions. Number 1, how is Jerry John Rawlings' events, processes, and actions associated to him named and referred to linguistically? So there is the linguistic interest in this study. What characteristics, qualities, and features are attributed to Rollins in relation to these events and processes? And what arguments are employed in the discourses in question? And from what perspective are these nominations, attributions, and arguments about Rollins expressed? And finally, are the utterances of Rollins articulated overtly, that is, plainly or openly, or are they intensified or mitigated? The analysis also of the strategies in this approach can be done at 3 levels, and doing it at these 3 levels ensures some amount of rigor and credibility. The findings, the 3 levels are linguistic, discursive, and the macro contextual levels. At the linguistic level, I'm interested in linguistic structures such as pronouns, verbs, adjectives, etc., etc. And at the discursive level, how these come together, for example, to interact with discourse elements such as metaphors and other rhetorical tropes. At the macro contextual level, my interest is in the social and historical and political backgrounds that inform the production of those discourses of Rollins. Now, why is this study significant? The significance of the study can be seen in 3 areas: practice, methodology, and theory. At the level of practice, this study would deepen our understanding of Ghana's political history and can inform how we practice it. The study will also hold methodological implications for CDA as it deploys this framework to the analysis of discourse, to which the approach has not been extensively applied in terms of the discourse historic approach. Again, the current study will contribute to, as I said, the discourse historical approach, but more importantly, it will extend its application to other meaning creation processes, such as unity, solidarity, communal stability, social cohesion, which traditionally have not been the focus of the discourse historical approach. The study will also contribute to theories of legitimation by extending the existing frameworks like my paper has done. Okay, here are some references, and I hope that the study has, this presentation has been enlightening in some ways for you, and it can inform the decision that some of you make to pursue PhD studies with our department and in our university. I want to give a shout out to my advisors, Dr. Aditi Bhatia, Dr. Finis Lam, and Professor Kathleen Orenz for their guidance so far in this project. And I want to thank the Hong Kong PhD Fellowship Scheme for awarding me the scholarship to pursue this study. Now, I'll be ready for some questions if you have any. Thank you.